think there's a belief that blockchain by itself is secure, but we know that since the cryptocurrencies have come up, that over $1 billion have been stolen from cryptocurrency blockchains. So just using the blockchain technology by itself, it just doesn't guarantee you security, right? For example, system administrators can access blockchain data, blockchain applications. That's how Mt. Gox's bitcoins were stolen. So you need to have protection from system administrators, root users, accessing the data and the applications. Also, a lot of blockchains, public blockchains, the data is not encrypted. And so that's another way to steal information and to use it maliciously. The third thing is that even if the data does get encrypted, the encryption keys are not protected. So you need a platform that actually saves or protects these encryption keys, not in open memory and software, but in tamper-resistant hardware. And the fourth thing is that you need blockchains that could protect themselves from malware and ransomware. So there's a number of companies that have helped create clouds and hardware to protect against these four types of attacks. One is protection from administrators. The second one is not encrypting your data. The third one is not protecting your encryption keys. And the fourth one is protection from malware and ransomware. I think large companies are well positioned to provide these types of secure technologies. For one, right, there's protection you could have in the hardware. And so then companies that are large enough to actually build their own hardware and their own chips, right? They have that advantage. So that's the IBMs, the Googles, right? The second thing is that a lot of the blockchain technologies, some of them are open source, some of them are proprietary. Open source code, has more scrutiny, so less types of security holes, could get through them. So that's where there's collaborations between small companies and large companies, because anyone could contribute to open source code. And then the third one is those companies that do provide cloud services, blockchain cloud services. Those companies that have experience already protecting your cloud, protecting your sensitive data, they have that experience, whereas startup companies, they don't even know where to begin to protect data. I mean, you see all these headlines now about all the breaches that Facebook has, all the breaches that Yahoo had. Those were just they were startup mistakes, right? They didn't even think about protecting data as like the first thing that should happen. Yeah, I think your suggestion is a good one. That blockchain should have pluggable consensus algorithms. We should definitely get rid of mining, right? Because it doesn't help the transaction. It wastes so much electricity, and it's just not efficient. Another way of making sure that the data is distributed and that it's the copies reach a synchronized coherence is you could use sharding. That could be one way. Another one is to use endorsement policies, so that if I transfer money to you, then you could endorse it and say that yes, you really did get $100 from me into your wallet. And we don't have to, ask, another, all the participants in the blockchain, did I really transfer $100 to you? Because they have no idea. The only person who does know are the participants in a transaction. So having endorsement that's only part of, done by the participants in a transaction, that's another way to reach consensus. Another one is just, one that's been mathematically proven, the practical Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus algorithm. So just in math and computer science, right? There's an army, and they hold a castle, and they have a large army, and then you have all these little enemy armies around it, and they want to take the castle. And the thing is, they're smaller than the one big enemy, so all the little enemy armies, they have to coordinate their attack. So they should either most of them should attack, or if most of them cannot attack, they shouldn't attack at all. But the problem is that some of the enemy armies, they're traitors, and some of the way that they talk to each other, the messengers are traitors as well. So this is the math problem that corresponds to computer systems. You have all these computer systems, they don't trust each other. You have a network system that goes down, and so that's not trustworthy. So how do you know, when there's one signal that most of us should attack or most of us should not? And that's what they call the Byzantine fault-tolerant problem, because they were the Byzantine armies. And it's mathematically proven that at least if two-thirds of the armies, are not corrupted, then the distributed protocol will work, right? And as long as you follow that, then you could do distributed computing fine. The thing that we're trying to do is, just make it easy for companies to use and to solve business problems that would help the world. So as I said, one is food trust, enabling the food suppliers to track where their food comes from. Another one is the trade lens blockchain that allows export-import companies to more efficiently ship their goods across the world. Another one is a blockchain for universal payments to allow banks in Europe and Japan and other countries to give financing to Pacific corridors that normally don't have access to as much financing. We're also creating blockchains, to help government agencies with the efficient transfer and recording of property, titles, and government assets. We're working with many banks to use the blockchain to more efficiently provide trade financing. We work across industries just to take inefficient processes right now that may take weeks, a lot of paperwork, a lot of signatures, and put that in a secure blockchain to make that more efficient. We're creating new types of businesses, for example, the plastic blockchain, where we're providing plastic or petroleum companies like ExxonMobil, and we're coupling that with people who recycle their plastics so that they get remunerated, so that there's less decomposable plastic in the world. We're working with governments to use blockchains to help migrants, get processed more quickly so that they don't have to stay in refugee camps, as long. So that's the part that I really like of working on blockchain at IBM. It's a technology, but you could apply it to help a lot of people. Technically, we're working on technologies to make it more secure. As I said, we built special hardware to protect it from administrators, root users, to automatically encrypt the data all the time, to make accelerators that speed up blockchain. And we've put that in our blockchain cloud so that you could secure your blockchain even better. No, a centralized database will always be more efficient than a decentralized one because of trust, right? So if I'm Bank of America, right, and you're Bank of China, right, and I say, okay, Bank of China, you don't need a database anymore. Let me hold all the information about your account holders. You're going to say no, right? Because you don't trust Bank of. I mean, we might be good, we might do business together, but you won't trust all your sensitive data for me to manage, even though it's more efficient that there's only one database between us. So, and it's the same thing with export-import, right? All the cargo that's leaving the U.S., right, and say that cargo is going to France, right? The U.S. wants to have a database of all the things that's coming into the U.S. ports. They're not going to say, France, one database is more efficient than two databases. The U.S. is going to get rid of their database. We'll keep all of our information in France, right? That's not going to happen. Yeah, I think they'll coexist. I think the history of business is that, there's always going to be a few large corporations, but then there's just something. You get successful, and then it's harder, to innovate, right? You're not as quick, and that's why you have all these new companies, and they become the new large corporations until they become successful in the one thing or a few things they become successful at, and then they fail to see the new thing coming up, and then the new companies will come. So I think, historically we'll always have the large companies, the new companies, and the new companies will bring new innovation, new ways of using blockchain. The larger companies will say, okay, yeah, you could use the blockchain for that, but we'll make sure that we keep it secure, that we keep malicious hackers from hacking into it. We'll build special hardware for it, and then something new is going to come along. One day, we can't see it, but there might be some new technology that says, we don't even need a Google search engine anymore, right? There might, who knows what that's going to be, right? I mean, at one point we thought everyone was going to use, Microsoft desktops, right? And now people are more into Linux, and they're more into smartphones, and one day, we're not even going to have smartphones, right? We're going to have these wearable devices. The AI is going to be efficient enough that we could talk to it in whatever languages we want. And that data and those processes will happen, in the cloud, but also the computing power that we'll have just in our wearable devices will be powerful enough as well, right? I think what you're doing now is a good start. You're doing these interviews. You created this whole symposium, and you put a bunch of panelists, together. And I think it's important to get people from different disciplines to talk to each other. Most of the time I just talk to other technical blockchain people. We would never say blockchain is cryptocurrency, blockchain is a database, but we just interact with each other. But this is the first time I was put on a stage with an economist, a finance person, and then a journalist. I said, wow, is that what they really think blockchain is, right? So I think it's really good that ChainDD brings people from different disciplines together. And then you saw how simple, I was thinking about finance. I thought, oh, if only they put all that information about mortgages on the blockchain, and the economist and the finance person says, no, that wouldn't have helped, right? So I had a very simple understanding of the finance world too. So I think it's really good.